Okay, so we are in the opening of your book. So we are in. Oops. Yeah. We're talking about the halakha of Hamotzi, which is 50 money. We're not going for all of them, but the right one. In Kuf Samachet, if Kuf Samachet in Tzeichim, Kuf Samachet is 1:8, and we're focusing on Tzeich Zayin, and then we'll continue on the rest. But just a short summary of last week, because we didn't manage to finish the halachot of it, and as I sent the picture, the WhatsApp group of a plate full of hamantashes of the Aman. If I eat all of them, do I say a bracha of Hamotzi or Mezonot? We'll answer today how much we need to eat, what happens when we eat the Borekas next to other things. So that's a question for today. And another question is, if I eat cake in the middle of the meal, do we say Hamotzi on it? No. Do we say Mezonot on the cake, or the fact we said Hamotzi in the beginning of the meal is potter? So that's the question for today. So just a very short summary of last week. Last week we defined that Bracha of Hamotzi, we need 4 criteria to have the Bracha of Hamotzi. It's made out of the 5 grains, very simple definition. It's baked, also a very simple definition. And baked here means even if it's fried without oil or baked on a pan. So baking on a pan is considered baked.
Bagel, which is boiled, is not.
That's we're hopefully going to get to it today, but maybe next week. But since you asked already, so bagel, since it's boiled and then baked, so it's considered bread, and we say Hamotzi on bagel. Although it's baked, boiled a bit and then baked, we still say Hamotzi on it since it's baked. That's quite an easy definition. And then we had 2 more complicated definitions. One is that's our topic for today and last week. It's something which people have it as the main part of the meal, and we'll go to it in just a moment. Another topic which we said is also hard to define, and hopefully we'll get to it this week, and if not next week. It has a shape of bread, and that's, as we said, is how do we define a shape of bread? Nice looking challah. What's a shape of bread? Anyway, so we were in the third definition, the third criteria of something which people have it as bread as the main part of the meal. And we met something called pata b'kisnin, which on that, it's bread, it's baked. It is made out of the 5 grains. It has a shape of bread, whatever shape of bread is, but people don't eat it as the main part of the meal, more as a snack. And therefore, the bracha of it is Mezonot. And we said there's 3 options of pata b'kisnin. One is bread that it's filled up with something like nuts, sugar, cinnamon, spices, whatever. So it's regular bread dough, which is filled like a kiss. Another option is bread that, or dough that has inside the dough all sorts of spices, or a lot of oil, or sugar, or maybe milk. And here we saw a machloket, an argument between the Shulchan Aruch and the Rama. According to the Shulchan Aruch, as soon as we can taste the added spices or milk or liquids, so the bracha is Mezonot. And for Ashkenazim, the Rama, we say Mezonot only if we can taste it very much. That's the main part, that's the main taste of the dough. We mentioned also last week that lachmaniyat Mezonot, a bread roll that you buy it in the shop that says on it Mezonot, or you get an airplane that says on it Mezonot. So just learn the Shulchan Aruch and the Rama. So the bracha, according to the Shulchan Aruch, should be Mezonot. You can taste the sugar. And according to Ashkenazim, since it's not very sweet, it's just sweet color, sweet bread. So the bracha should be Hamotzi. And we mentioned last week that according to many poskim of our days, Even for Sfaradim, the bracha will be Mezonot. It's an argument between Sfaradim, but even for Sfaradim, some say it will be Mezonot, will be Hamotzi, will be Hamotzi, since it's a bread roll. You buy it as a bread roll. It's the main part of the meal. You eat it with herring and hummus and everything else, but it has a bit of sugar just so they can seal it with the title of Mezonot. But in the end,
well, the question is really just you don't want to have to wash, because when you're on an airplane, you don't want to have to get up to get to diet.
Right.
So the question is if you can do motzi it and not wash for it.
So you have to. So the whole point is trying to make a bread, which is not bread. It's a cake. Mezonot. But as soon as it's viewed as a bread, so it's bread. The fact you can buy sweet challah for Shabbat, and you get sweet challah on the plane. So according to many poskim, it will be hamotzi, and you still need to wash on it. So getting up. So according to many poskim, that will be the halacha. Some wash. I on an airplane I always wash for those breads, or just keep it for after the plane and washed afterwards. And some somech and hold it's mezonot, although it's a bit hard to understand this shita because people eat it as bread, get it as bread. Okay? We mentioned also last week Rav Feinstein, who holds that on one slice of pizza we say mezonot. Doesn't matter what's the pizza made out of, and we explained that that's probably, and as I said last week, that's my guess is because in the States people eat pizza as a snack. Right, and you can see if I'm right or not wrong, but my feeling is that the culture is here in Israel, pizza is food you sit down to eat when you're hungry, and in the States it will be more of a snack. That's my guess. I have someone who's trying to reach us here, trying to join. Okay.
I thought the halacha is if you have two slices, then it's maybe considered motzi.
Yeah, if you have two slices, so even for Rav Moshe Feinstein, it will be hamotzi.
American or Israeli, where's the culture?
That's a good question. It's a question because usually, yeah, somewhere that we have rules. This is bread. This isn't bread. But is it depending on the culture or no? It's a question.
I would say if it has more the culture.
Geographical has a very strong impact on people because we behave like our surroundings. So when we move to somewhere, so we get the atmosphere. Okay, that was last week. So up to now, just try to let Avram join us. Okay.
The difference between bread and mezonot is mezonot is enriched with something like sugar or maybe fruit, but there are breads like chow or others that have added
toppings on them, so it's bread.
It's bread.
It's bread. The Shulchan Aruch even here brings here something, and I'll read this from you. And anyway, the Shulchan Aruch talked about bread which is filled with meat, and that's bread. That's bread with meat. Okay, just and the last thing the third. Yeah, I'll just read for you the Shulchan Aruch. It's in the end of Siman Kuf Samechet, Seif Yizani. We can go there, then we'll go back to where we are. פשטידה הנאפה בתנור בבשר או בדגים או בגבינה, which means we call it focaccia, okay, focaccia with meat or fish or cheese or not. מברך עליו המוציא וברכת המזון, since it's bread. And okay, so pizza, unless the dough is different, it's very oily or whatever it is, according to Shulchan Aruch, it will be hamotzi. And the third definition we said for mezonot was if it's something which is so thin that people eat it as a nibble on it. Nibble on it, like bagel, like crackers, although the dough originally is like bread, so that will be mezonot, because it's baked thin. And here comes a few questions. it's bread, right? We said it's bread. And the whole reason Abraham is joining us, great. The whole reason it's Mezonot, maybe not. Yeah. The whole reason it's Mezonot is because people don't eat it. People don't eat it as a main part of the meal. They snack on it. Okay? That's the whole reason it's Mezonot. But what happens if I ate a big amount? My kovea mesudonat, I made it to be the main part of the meal. So, says the Shulchan Aruch, and we mentioned it last week, and that's we're going to it deeper this week. And now I'm in Seif Vav. Okay? ואם אחד ממנו, שיעור שאחרים רגילים לקבוע עליו, if one ate from those cakes or pizza, whatever it is, an amount that normal people eat it and they're satisfied by it and make it be part of the meal, although he is still hungry or a bit hungry, so we say on it Hamotzi, and obviously Birkat Hamazon. So that's the Shulchan Aruch. How much is this amount? How much is this amount? How much do I need to eat? So the Mishnah Berurah here brings two options. I'm talking about cake. I'm eating cake. Yeah, but I'm eating a lot of cake. Mezonot. It's baked. Okay, it's bread by baking it, but because people don't usually eat it as the main part of the meal, the bracha is Mezonot. But now I made it to the main part of the meal. I'm eating it as the main part of the meal. I'm eating 20 ham passions. What bracha do I say? 20 pancakes. Pancakes is a good question. We'll get to it probably next week. Okay. The pasta is cooked. Pasta is not bread.
Yeah, so if you eat it as enough of it as a main meal,
it will always be Mezonot. Pasta will always be Mezonot. Yeah, we're talking here only about things which are by definition are bread. They are baked. They are from the 5 grains. But usually we just snack on them. And now I'm not snacking on them. When we just got married, we had also friends who just got married. And the wife was very happy, the young wife. She made cookies. She made 50 cookies. She goes to work. She comes back. 25 are gone. Her husband ate them for breakfast. So he should say Hamotzi on those cookies.
There are a few other things to say.
Well, now they have a story to say. But anyway, so there are two measurements both in the scheme, and we go by both. Okay, some say a volume of 4 eggs, which is quite more or less measured. You can measure it. And some say, well, the regular amount that you're satisfied by. Okay, so what do we do? So if usually I'm satisfied by eating more than 4 eggs. Usually I eat 5 eggs. So I shouldn't eat between 4 and 5 eggs. As soon as I eat 4 eggs, I should already be satisfied by it. But if I ate an amount of 4 eggs and I'm satisfied by it, so I say Hamotzi. So if I have a big amount, that's my breakfast. Cake, cookies, that's my breakfast. I say on that Mezonot. I say on that Hamotzi. If that's my breakfast, I say on that Hamotzi. The cookies become bread because now it's the main part of the meal. But here comes more of a interesting question. Let's say I'm eating a Borekas. A Borekas is Mezonot, right? Mezonot. I'm eating only 1 Borekas. Next to it, I'm eating also meat and vegetables and salads, and I'm satisfied. But how much Borekas did I eat? 1. I would have eaten only this one. Satisfied, right? Let's just read the Mishnah Berurah inside. Right. Oh, maybe I'll just mention what the Mishnah Berurah said. Here. Yeah. Right. I'll read just 2 lines and then we'll say it in English. If you eat it by itself. If you eat it just Borekas says without anything else, have the amount that usually people are satisfied by it. Let's say it's 3 Borekases, so 3 Borekases. If you eat it with other things, salads and other things that usually come as part of the meal, שיעור שאחרים רגילים לסבול ממנו, שאוכלים גם כן דברים אחרים. It's enough to have the amount that usually people eat when they eat it with other things. So as soon as I have a Borekas, and soon we'll bring a better definition, as soon as I have Borekas and other things, and usually people eat it and they're satisfied by that, so the Bracha should be Hamotzi. It seems like it. We'll give it a better explanation. Here comes the question which we had in Yeshiva and in the army, many, many times.
How do you know if you have a Borekas and you have these other foods? Talking with the bracha, you say to start the meal.
Right.
How do you know?
How do you know?
Ever know if you don't know how much you're going to eat?
So you're asking for starting with a plate full of whatever it is.
Yeah.
How do you know if I'll be satisfied or not? Right?
Yeah. So how would you know to say Mezonot or Hamotzi?
Well, we talk about the no. First, we talk about there's two answers. First, we would learn last week we mentioned it, but if I started my Mezonot and then I ate a lot and I'm satisfied, so I say Mezonot and Birkat Hamazon. We retrieve a question. How could it be that lechatchila I'll say Mezonot on something, and then I'll say Hamotzi on the same thing? So if I started by eating Mezonot, and then I ate a lot of it, I didn't think I'll eat a lot of it. After I started eating, I said to myself, I'm taking only one cake. I'm on a diet, only one cake. But then I took one whole cake, not a piece of cake. So I started with Mezonot and then I say Hamotzi. And second, that's another answer is that usually a person knows how much he needs to be satisfied. More or less, you don't need to have an exact measurement. I know that if I take a plate full of pasta and salads next to it, that's enough for me. So you know ahead of time how much you need to eat to be satisfied.
So having one Borekas and these other vegetables, go and wash and make a roast.
Yeah, but here, that's a very strange thing.
Yeah.
I mean, one Borekas, how many other things next to it? I say Hamotzi on the Borekas. That sounds a bit strange, right? In the army, mainly in the yeshiva, when we had Borekas filled with meat, so you get a small piece of Borekas, and people ate pasta and rice and other things, and some came and washed their hands and said, well, I'm satisfied. I'm eating here Borekas, which is a kind of bread. So maybe I'll have to say Hamotzi. So they washed their hands on the bread, and maybe some of them washed their hands on bread just so they have a bit of bread. But that sounds strange. Before we even go into that sounds strange. How could it be that I'm eating a small piece of Borekas, and at the end I'm satisfied, but I'll say Hamotzi because of the Borekas? It's a bit of hard to understand. So here we have two, maybe. Wait a second. Let's wait a moment. Rav Karelitz and other Rav Orbach and other Achronim say that not everything joins the Borekas. Only things which usually are eaten together as a meal. Cake not, for example. Okay, cake and meat is two different things. Okay, I say I'm eating cake in the beginning of the meal, and then I'm eating meat, and then I eat more cake. No one eats meat. Hopefully, no one eats meat on the cake. Right? Anyway, let's just Purim. But Purim is yesterday. Yeah. Purim, everyone says that brachot, you don't know what they say. But they must have some connection together. And if you look at the words of the Mishnah Berurah, and that's why I read it in Hebrew, it sounds like also the Mishnah Berurah holds the same thing. They would say Hamotzi and everything together, only if usually they're eaten together. Okay? If you eat this Borekas or whatever it is with meat, or דברים אחרים, or other things, שמלפים בו הפת, usually are eaten with bread. Usually, let's say, meat and egg just don't go together. So first, I have to have a connection between them. By the way, also here we have a machloket, which Moshe Feinstein argues, but that seems like many poskim say that there has to have some sort of connection between. And another idea I saw in Halacha by Rabbi Eliezer Melamed, that this Borekas in the end needs to be the main part of the meal. The other things are eaten together with the Borekas. Okay, but if it's just like I've got a small piece of Borekas with a ground meat inside, and it's just the main part of the meal, what makes me satisfied in the end is the pasta or the rice. So I'll say that's Mezonot. The Borekas needs to be the main part of the meal. Maybe for a has to be okay. That's
So before he had one Bracha and
that's what it seems like. I said so. We backed out of it. So if you want to go to the bottom line, if I have one Borekas in the meal and I'm eating out of salads and other things, no. So I'll say Mezonot on the Borekas and whatever. But if the Borekas, that's the main part of the meal. It's a big Borekas. It's a big one, and so I say Hamotzi and the Borekas. If in the end I'm satisfied by everything together, as long as Borekas is the main part of my meal. Another interesting question: or do we say a bracha on cake in the end of the meal? Now it depends on what we learned. At the end of the meal,
Dessert. Fruit, you're supposed
fruit
to
we
say
say,
the bracha,
yeah. What about cake? What about cake? The Mishnah Berurah says, what?
No,
okay. Let's see. If this cake is actually bread, if it's actually bread, but it's bread just because people aren't kofei down, so we say Mezonot, but it's actually bread. So obviously, if I eat bread in the beginning of the meal and then bread in the end of the meal, obviously I do not say another bracha for the new piece of bread which I have. But if this bread, it's not bread, it's cake. It's not bread. It's not bread. Do we say Mezonot in the end of the meal?
It depends if you said it Hamotzi before.
I said Hamotzi
covers everything except for the fruit at the
But
end.
it's not.
I thought
It's not tofel apat.
So yes, so Yoel says it's not a fill-a-pat. It's not a fill-a-pat. If it's like you're saying, if it's dessert, so it's not a fill-a-pat. Okay, it's a separate part of the meal.
It's cultural.
It's a cultural thing. We want to learn it now that something which comes if it's a cultural thing. In the past, they used to clear up the whole table, actually like we do today for dessert, more or less. Really clear everything up, and then bring like a new table. And so some of the things you actually say a bracha on them. It doesn't come as part of the meal. So the whole reason that bread is put everything, you use everything on the bread is because we say everything is part of the bread. The bread comes to make us satisfied, and also the salad comes to make me satisfied, and also the meat and the chicken and the rice. So everything in the end is part of the bread. But the cake or desserts usually are something else, aren't part of the meal. So and in the South, the most part, one of my relatives, they start cooking for Shabbat with the desserts. If they have any problem, something, at least have desserts for Shabbat. And in the South, it took us time to get used to it. In the middle of the meal, when they take out the meat and everything, we call it cake, but they call it kugel. It's strawberries or cranberries or whatever, but I would eat it as cake, but it could be part of the meal. Anyway, so we'll see two things that will be here in argument. Okay, so the Mishnah Berurah said that if it's for sure, if it might be bread, so for sure I don't say a bracha. If it's just a cake, sweet cake, that might be bread, right? Might be bread. We said there's three options for pata b'kisanin. There are three options for pata b'kisanin, and maybe it's dry like crackers, maybe it's sweet dough, maybe it's filled dough. So sweet dough might be bread. Maybe pata b'kisanin or the Mezonot is something else. Okay, so if I have just cake, might be bread. Okay, because we had a question. What's the definition of bread? What's the definition of pata b'kisanin? We had three options. Maybe it's filled dough, maybe like a rogalach or like a croissant. Maybe it's a sweet dough, or maybe it's a cracker. So each one of those options might be or bread or pata b'kisanin. Okay, so if it's bread, for sure we don't say a bracha on it. What happens if we have a sweet dough, which is also filled with something in it? That brings us far away from bread and more towards the Mezonot, right? So a rogalach or yeast cake, you have a yeast cake, yeast dough today isn't regular dough, it's sweet dough, special dough, and it has chocolate inside it or cinnamon or whatever you have. So if you have yeast cake, so it's also filled up, and also sweet dough. That brings us quite far away from bread. So it's not bread, and I'm eating it at the end of the meal. It's not part of the meal, and this. Okay, we'll get to it very, very soon. You're saying the Rashba. You're saying the Rashba. And we should say that Hamotzi. Some say we should say that, sorry, I'm getting mixed up. We should say Mezonot on cake, on some of the cakes at the end of the meal. I remember when one of the Shabbatot, I was with my Rosh Hashiva, so I got late to the meal. So I didn't have a place to sit with all the rest of the students, so I sat down with the Rosh Hashiva, which was great because at the end of the meal, they brought yeast cake, and I paid attention to see what is he going to do when he's going to eat the yeast cake. And he did not say a bracha on it. Okay, although it was the end of the meal, everything was cleared up, he did not say a bracha on it. I asked him, do you say a bracha on cake at the end of the meal? I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. He said no. And then I saw afterwards, I saw the Rashba. The Rashba holds that in the end, everything which is made out of the 5 grains, in the end, it comes to satisfy us. It comes to fill us up. Some of us probably also, when we eat, we count the calories. Okay, 1 second. I know I have a cake at the end of the meal, so now I'll have only 1 piece of bread to save some room, because cake, especially if it's just fruit, it feels lighter, or maybe something small, sweet. So it doesn't. It's more for the sweet taste on the mouth. But cake, we view it as something which in the end it comes to make us satisfied, even if it's also sweet dough and also filled up with things. So according to the Rashba, we don't say that Mezonot in the middle of the meal, end of the meal. Doesn't matter. As soon as we have the dough, we don't say that Mezonot, and that's according to the Rashba. So that's when we eat cake at the end of the meal. If we don't say that Mezonot, you understand why. Although it's the end of the meal, it's something new, and it's not part of the meal, because it's in the end it comes to satisfy, make us satisfied. Okay, so we've finished here the topic of Pata Barbecue Sanin. We defined that, and we have a heavy topic, so we'll skip it. We'll just answer one question which was asked on the WhatsApp. What happens if I have breadcrumbs? What bracha do we see on breadcrumbs? I have a small piece of bread. Okay, what bracha do we see on a small piece of bread? Or the question is, it's on the kazait. Yeah, I took a very small piece of bread. Hamotzi. So the question is a wider question. When something is bread, it's already bread, what needs to be done to stop it being bread? And we have 3 options of just of how, technically, how do we do it? First, if I cut it small pieces, so it's still bread, as we said, and breadcrumbs, it's still bread. Right? There's no difference in the halacha view. I take a bread, cut it to 2, cut it to 10, or cut it to 100 pieces. If it's just crumbled up and that's it stays bread. We have a few more definitions. There's 2 more options. One is I soak it in water, and one is I cooked it. Okay, so what do you think will be further away from bread? Soaked in water or cooked? Obviously cooked, right? If I take bread and cook it, that changes the definition of the bread more. Okay, so we have, if it just crumbs, so it's still hamotzi. Even if I have small crumbs, the same for mezonot, by the way. If I had just a few crumbs of cookie, serenat mezonot. Okay, what happens if I cook it? Okay, or if I cook it, or if I soak it in water. Okay, if I cook it, and that goes a bit to the matzah I mentioned last week. We don't have time to go into depth. If I cooked it, so it becomes mezonot, unless there's a kazait, at least one piece has a kazait. So we just give 2 examples. French toast. French toast is we soak it in the milk, whatever it is, and then we fry it. It's like cooked. What bracha do we say on it? Hamotzi. There's more than a kazait. At least one piece has more than a kazait. What bracha do we say on Knei Dalach? Mezonot. Why? It's cooked. It's cooked. There's no kazait. Oh, it's crumbs. There's no kazait. So it's mezonot. Okay. Now, if it's just soaked in water, so it's mezonot, unless there's one out of two options, or if it has a kazait. If a soaked bread inside wine, okay, and it has a kazait, I'll say on that hamotzi. Or if it's even if it's smaller than a kazait, but it still looks like bread, so the bracha will still be hamotzi. So we just go with fast. If it's crumbs, it will still be hamotzi, even if it's crumbs. If it's cooked, it will be hamotzi only if it has a kazait. And if it's just soaked in water or honey, whatever it is, and but not cooked, it will be hamotzi if or it has a kazait or it has the shape of bread, so that will still be hamotzi. We'll continue the same siman next week.
What about schnitzel?